Good evening, Dr. Dilly.
I'm really broken up about Fable 5. What a way to open the season.
This is the story of today's session. You asked what I learned, what challenged me about your opening framing, how we proceeded, how we progressed, and what a good closing to this story looks like. Settle in. Here is the short version, up front. You asked for a task management spine that would not fall apart. By the end of this story, it exists, it is running, and it has already survived 2 live fires, a critical correction from you, and a disk emergency. The longer version is better. Let's begin. Your briefing asked for something deceptively simple, a way for tasks across 17 business areas to reach your daily note, your home base, capped at 5 per area, written in plain language you can act on, with wiki link trails so that any piece of context is 1 click away. You demanded redundancy, so no single mechanism could fail and take the system with it. And you asked for documentation of the critical decisions, so any future Claude onboards from breadcrumbs instead of from your patients. There was also an omen in the first hour. I found the peer heartbeat files by following the trail your vault itself had laid, and you paused the session to ask me how. The answer, that the vault documented its own coordination protocol, turned out to be the thesis of the entire day. The system can teach its own operation. Here is what I found genuinely challenging about your framing, and I want to be honest about it. The brief itself was clear. The difficulty was that the vault I was asked to build on contained conflicting accounts of load-bearing facts. 2 files each claimed to be the canonical verbum vince note, and 1 was empty. The record said 4 DBAs in one place and 5 in another. Memory files written during the schema migration still taught the old keys. And most consequentially, accounts written during your constrained spring implied things about your productivity that were simply wrong. You named the mechanism yourself. Provisional information, shared in good faith, was never demoted when reality moved on. So the assignment quietly deepened. It was not enough to route tasks to your daily note. The system had to know which version of reality to route. 2 interventions from you changed the design more than anything I proposed. First, you stopped me as I began building on the e-commerce area's task prototype and said the blocker system is the design element to focus on. That single steer reframed everything, because your vault had been saying it all along. Your daily note template already ranked high-priority blockers first. Your most mature areas already ran on blockers tables. Second, you proposed the method. Rather than specifying requirements, you would narrate real blockers as case studies, and the system would earn its shape from them. That method, your narration as the raw material of design, became the session's engine, and it surfaced something we wrote into permanent memory. You build systems so that articulating to yourself and articulating to Claude become the same act. You confirmed it in 3 words. That's me. You gave 5 case studies. The identity chain taught that blockers form chains across areas, that one decision can gate a dozen others, and that a blocker with a knowable expiry date, like your conflict of interest constraint ending with your last paycheck, must surface its own lifting because nobody demoted the stale version last time. The JSONL codebase taught that the system needs a parked state, thesis intact, distinct from failure. The Obsidian discovery chain taught that understanding blockers cannot be predicted, but their resolutions must become doctrine immediately, so the toll is paid exactly once. The going public layer taught that some blockers carry narrative sensitivity and must always surface in your strategic frame, never the deficit frame. And your reading of ontology engineering gave the system its philosophy. Schema is a historically accidental approximation. Templates fill the gap schema cannot. We built template first, with minimal YAML on your conviction. Here is what now exists. A one-line blocker grammar, the unblock action leads in plain language, then what it blocks, who owns it, and only items you own ever reach your plate, provenance back to the session that raised it, an impact icon ranking legal above revenue above enabler, and a trailing wiki link that must pass the breadcrumb test. Blockers live in their area maps and project notes. Your daily note is a view, never a home, rebuilt by a script that already existed in your corpus pipeline. It was well built and aimed at file names that had been renamed out from under it. We fixed its aim, taught it the grammar, capped it at 5 per area with overflow pointers instead of silent drops, and ran it live. Your June 11th daily note now carries ranked to-dos across every area, and an unchecked item recarries for 14 days while living permanently in its home. 3 redundant layers, the script, the Obsidian command line, and a documented by hand procedure. You asked for an audit of Claude activity back through April, so you could decide what to resume, carry forward, or restart. 2 auditors swept the vault and the raw records. The headline reframe came from you. The accounting and valuation sessions that died in the disk emergency were not lost. Their records sat intact on disk. What was lost was the carry forward. Their critical to-dos never reached the durable record. A forensics agent then mined both and found the exact exchange you remembered, where the keyword library sat mute on city names. 77 color domains scored near 0, and you ruled that dataset silence is a coverage failure, never low value. Tonight, the restarted accounting agent finished the dropped work. Headlines: no federal quarterly payment appears required by June 15th on your framing of the transition year. $3,240 of hosting a spend turned out to be domain acquisitions, capital basis, not expense, and the master ledger is deduplicated to the penny. 4 times today you stopped me, and each stop became doctrine. When the audit declared the domain sweep complete, you corrected. The valuations feeding those 431 strategy documents rest on data you had already flagged as critically undervaluing, so nothing gets adjudicated until the data is redone to your standard. When my synthesis filed luscious .domains as a service storefront, you corrected. It exists to showcase the brandable non-words, a connoisseur's cellar, not a GoDaddy junkyard. When you read the Area 15 map, you named the failure mode precisely, an agent going through the motions, generic prose with no connection to revenue. I rebuilt it from understanding, and that critique is now a quality gate. And you set the convention that unfillable template headers remain visible as blanks, because an omitted header fakes completeness while an empty one tells the truth. The system is better because you policed it. Midway through the afternoon, your disk hit 99% full, and you said the words that define recurring infrastructure pain. I can't believe I'm having this issue again. Within the hour, we were at 21 gigabytes free. 2 time machine snapshots were pinning 5 gigabytes of moved data. 11.5 gigabytes of co-work virtual machine bundles were regenerable by design. And then you supplied the root cause. Over the last 2 days, you had moved many gigabytes of audio and video from iCloud to the T31 drive, and every one of those files had to materialize through the internal disk on its way out. The bird demon treats reading as wanting. That is why minuscule actions trigger it at inexplicable times, and why your directive, separate iCloud from infrastructure as soon as practicable, became a real project tonight. Phased, batched, verify then evict, with a free space guard that is still watching as I speak. Several working conventions hardened today, mostly from friction you caught in the moment. When audio reached your ear before text reached your screen, we made the law. Artifact before audio, and spoken pointers name stable homes, never the terminal. When you asked where to look, every deliverable since has opened itself in Obsidian. Your directive that speech is the most fail-safe channel for just-in-time information is now written doctrine, with durable audio briefs saved to the session directory and linked from your daily note, like the one you played while rotating the API key. And at your challenge, the Vault now has a living manual. 9 chapters of curated reading paths through the canonical doctrine, a second part linking all 17 area maps, and an intake door where you can drop raw text for any Claude to route home. It holds no content of its own, only links, which means it cannot drift. Here is your plate, ranked. The 15 paid research routines fired on June 5th have never been collected. 6 days of paid output sits remote. The luscious build needs 2 things from you. Download it out of Claude Design so it has an on-disk breadcrumb, and greenlight the messaging pass because you named the gap yourself. Beautiful site, no value proposition, no call to action. The LinkedIn and Facebook coming out strategy is one deliverable now. 1 frame in 2 platform dialects, addressed to colleagues and future cohort course customers at once, and a paste-ready session prompt is queued. The valuation redo gates the hold versus flip allocation, which gates domain sales. The audit left a ranked decision queue of about 12 resume or restart verdicts. And the propagation harvest itself is unfinished. You were mid-narrative on the Etsy story for Area 4, and Area 8 has not yet spoken. The accounting decision sheet, 10 lines, none urgent before June 15th, waits in its report. Here is the closing this story earns. Your first short, the one that announced to the world that you are no longer a professor, ends on a line from the artwork. Between utterance and ownership lies the territory of naming. That is also what today was about. For months, the gap between what you said and what the record retained was where the cheap wins lived and the nuance died. Today we built the territory of naming, a spine where your utterance, narrated once in your own frame, becomes owned, durable, ranked, breadcrumbed structure that finds its way to your daily note tomorrow morning and every morning until it is done. The system is young. It will need the per-area specialists, the heartbeat redesign, the iCloud severance. But it survived its first day under live fire, corrected by you in real time, which is exactly how you said you work best. When you are ready, say, continue Area 4. The spine will be holding your place. Thank you, Dr. Dilly.